they're feeling sheepish. You can tell that they're feeling like they're going to start crying. You can tell that they're going to almost cry, but they're the aggressor. And then you're mad.
And you say, what, are you going to cry?
Okay, so let's record the intro now.
So what did Milkless? Because I think we start with the name.
Two dads, we love our kids, but then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey, hey, Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Max coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take. On this episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about delivering both praise and criticism to your kids. Both these feel like a pretty big part of parenting, but you kind of want to do it right. You know, not all praise really helps people grow. Not all criticism is constructive. We're going to try to figure it out. Spoiler alert, the key is do it while you're really, really angry. Here we go.
All right, Matt, today we're talking about praise and critique. A very common interaction with our kids. Now, before we get in there, you know what? I kind of want to have a study to round us out before we dive right in.
We always got to round it out before we dive in.
Got to round it out.
Every time.
Look, all this, there's so many studies that are going to be pro-praise. You got to praise your kids. Little one here, 3,000 children in Japan. They asked them, what are you praised for? The kids who basically said, I've never been praised. Because they didn't say, do you get praised? They said, what are you praised for? And they responded, nothing. They had much higher levels of depression when the kids were 12. All the kids were 10 at the beginning. When they were 12, much higher incidence rates of depression if the kids said that they never got it. There's so many other ones like that. But the interesting ones that I also found was one by Mizukawa in 2018, proving that if a kid fails at something and they get kind of phony praise, just praise for no reason. Now, there's some positives, but some negatives. Those kids who failed and got a bunch of praise felt less bad about failing, thought they did better than they did, had a better feeling about themselves.
Crushed it.
Yeah. But here's the thing. They were less motivated to persevere on subsequent tests. Whereas kids who received zero feedback when they failed maybe felt a little bit worse about themselves, but they had a much higher incidence rate of wanting to persevere.
Dude, that is so fucking interesting. That study feels like it encapsulates something that is true about so much of parenting and why it makes parenting so hard. It's on the one hand, you have a kid that is not really going to have the motivation to get better at stuff, which will probably frustrate them at times in their life because they might not excel in things that they care about. But also, they probably won't feel as bad about themselves when they don't succeed.
Right.
And on the other hand, you got this more high-achieving person who tends to be harder on themselves, who struggles with failure, but also works against it. And they're both a mess. Yeah. And what you're aiming for is something in the middle.
Yeah.
This is why, whenever people are if they do this, you do this, it's that's not how parenting works, man. It's all aiming for some super squishy gray thing in the middle of two poles that are fucked.
Right. Which is why, but knowing this stuff is really important that okay, there's a couple extremes that are not ideal.
Mm-hmm. And just that all praise is not good or created equal, that it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, they found that descriptive praise is much better than general praise. So just saying good job, mm-hmm. nice work mm-hmm. is not as good in a few studies than, hey, I really like how you drew that cheetah, or, hey, that's really incredible how you cleaned up your plate at the dinner table. I really like that. Great. Good job on that.
Yeah.
Being descriptive about it.
Do you say it all weird like that, or do you try to say it more normal?
Yeah, I try to be like a commentator, Good job, kids. Activity B. But then there were also some studies that showed that it didn't matter. Both were good.
Really?
Some of them said it needs to be descriptive. Some of the studies showed that, and some of the studies showed actually both are good.
Interesting.
But then insincere praise following failure is just not as good, especially if the child has a more mature theory of mind. They're kind of more aware of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And they're come on, don't patronize me.
That's a tough one because their drawings when they're young are not good. But you don't want to crush their spirit, but you also don't want to make them think that that's as good as anyone's ever drawn a cat.
Yeah.
I always felt funny striking that balance. I'd always say a lot of stuff that's the best one you've ever done, because I never want to, you never want to lie to them.
Yeah, no, it's a tough one. Well, that also brings us to Carol Dweck. So we've talked about her before, I believe, on a previous episode, and she's got a book where she's all about this thing called a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So a fixed mindset is if you praise ability or outcomes a lot, like you're so smart, versus a growth mindset where you praise efforts.
Yeah.
You can create a child that like has a growth mindset. They know that life is growing. And a simple way to talk about it is like a fixed mindset means, oh, I got a set of cards and that's all I got. And so my whole life I'm trying to justify that I got a royal flush. And so they're very big into showing performance, but not about growth.
Oh, I wonder if that's how you make know-it-alls, is you tell kids they're smart all the time, and then they spend the rest of their life trying to prove it.
Yeah, exactly.
Those kids are obnoxious.
So much stuff in there, like that. There was a study she did with these fifth graders. I think we talked about it before, that when they praised ability, like, oh, you're so smart, when they failed, they literally did not really want to try again. Some of them thought about cheating because they just wanted to justify how smart they were.
Yeah.
Whereas kids praised on effort were, much more into persevering, trying again, learning from their behaviors. One last thing she pulled on brain activity. Kids who had shown that they were pretty much fixed mindset, they knew that they were smart, were not into growing or learning. When they got something wrong, their brain was like lights out. Like they shut down.
Really?
Yeah.
Just like, oh man. That's interesting.
Whereas like growth mindset, they were like, okay, they got something wrong. Brain is firing.
Yeah.
They're like, let me learn from this. How can I be better? I love this growth mindset versus fixed mindset.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it before, praising effort, not outcomes or ability.
You know what's really interesting about that? It also shows you like you really don't want to put a story on a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you don't want to make them this one, because if they're not what their parents told them they were, that's a hell of a thing for a kid to have to deal with. So much their brain turns off.
Yeah.
But I also don't feel like it's totally simple. I mean, there are some things that like I tell my daughter that she's a good person.
Yeah.
Probably because I feel like I'm overly critical of her sometimes and I see her being hard on herself. And that is kind of on the edge of that, like, here's who you are. I've also said things like, yeah, you're pretty tall and athletic. If you want to just try hard at stuff, you could be good at sports if you wanted to. But even that's like putting a little bit of a, there's a little bit of the sports dad in there probably.
Well, yeah, no, that definitely has some baggage in there. Like, listen, so like if you're not a pro athlete, you just fucking didn't try.
Yeah, fucking hell. Yeah. Well, but it's funny because like, I do see her at times like she will try something and if she's not good at it immediately, she's like, this is hard. And I'm like, well, everything's hard at first. And so I'm not trying to put that stank on it, but of course that stank's probably in there. I'm more trying to balance it with like, you do seem to be pretty tall and you can run pretty fast, but you're still going to have to work at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But that's also still getting into the logic action. This is like, I think the kids are too young. Like if they're under 10.
I just don't ever say shit to her about her athleticism is probably the answer.
Yeah. It's more like when we started talking about praising efforts, not outcomes on a previous episode. I think I told you this, like I was coaching sons basketball teams and I started just doing this. Like I used to be like all about if they made a shot. Insane. You're the man. Which is also kind of saying like, if you miss that shot, I feel the opposite in a way, whereas now all I praise is like when people are running hard, when they go for a loose ball, things that like are within their control, that like all you need to do is try and I'm going to lose my shit.
Yeah.
That's how I think you breed a growth mindset. Just, I think what you said earlier, like the know-it-alls, that's what's so fucking important to avoid. You do not want a kid who thinks they're the last Coke in the desert because everyone knows those kids who are so smart if they just applied themselves. I don't know why they're such a lost talent. That's just so much pressure.
Yeah.
To live up to.
Yeah.
If you praise how smart they are or how amazing they are at this or amazing they are at that, their whole life becomes trying to prove to everybody that they are that thing.
Yeah.
Because that's their view of the world, that everyone is given a set of tools. And then you just need to show everyone the tools that you were given.
Yeah.
Because I'm special, as opposed to like, no, I can create anything.
Yeah, they're trying to prove that thing. They're also trying to like correct that dissonance between who they actually are and who their parents told them they were.
Right.
That brain killing dissonance. Yeah. Yeah, fucking A, I probably need to do a better job of that. I've never just said like, you're the smartest girl in the world. But when my daughter does something that I'm impressed by, like makes a joke or something, sometimes I'll be like, you're a smart cookie. I should probably just say like, I like the way you did that joke. Because I always kind of mean it specifically. But the truth is, you do as a parent, when you think you see that your kid has a quality that maybe you like, you do tend to want to just say it, just name it,
And here's the thing. I'm talking about ideals. I do this constantly.
Oh, thank God. I thought it was just me.
No, I'm constantly telling the kids how amazing they are, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying like, it's something that I think we've started to learn one of the North Stars to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
That like you can twist somebody up, telling them too much of who they are in this incredible way. Because even if they are incredible, and they are the best at something, well, what if puberty happens and they're not anymore?
Yeah.
That's their identity. Their identity just goes away.
Yeah.
As opposed to, wow, if the kids grow up really knowing that I'm like a super hard worker, things that are in their control.
Well, and they get to try to succeed at the things they're naturally suited to and interested in, as opposed to trying to do something. Yeah. It feels like so obvious when we're talking about it, but in practice, it often feels so fuzzy because I do want to communicate to my kids that I think they're amazing.
Yeah.
And I will think they're amazing no matter what.
Yeah.
I will be their biggest cheerleader for their whole fucking lives. But some of the ways that probably comes across is just like, yeah, you just look at them and you're just like, you're so great. Like you just,
I know.
But I'm not sure that that's fucked up.
It isn't. I think it's similar to what we said before. It's almost like peeling back an onion. In the middle, as long as your kids know that you love them intensely and you like them and you think they're cool and awesome, you're nailing it.
Yeah. God, there's also this thing that maybe feels complicated to me. And this kind of deals with both praise and critique. I was sitting there at a campfire. It's nice. I was sitting at a campfire with two old friends. This guy I've known since high school and then his wife who we married a long time ago. And I was saying to them, I do feel like the parts of me that have been the most successful and that push the hardest to do the kind of work I want to do and kind of like try to make a mark or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That like, those are probably not the healthiest parts of me emotionally. And my friend's wife said, well, what do you mean by emotionally healthy? I was like, I don't know, just that like I'm worthy of love, even if I don't produce things. And she just hit her husband on the arm. She goes, hey, that sounds like you. And he's a really successful dude. So I feel that conflict because like I want my daughters to feel like enough. But it's like you want them to feel like enough, but you also don't want them to feel like that cheetah they just drew at age 6 is the best cheetah that anyone's ever drawn, and there's really nowhere to go from here.
Yeah, but I also love freaking out about a good cheetah, Are you kidding me? This thing is insane.
Yeah. Right?
Oh my God.
Move. That's the move.
You can still freak out and love it. I think it's just not lying to your kids.
Yeah.
You can say that this is insane because it's fucking insanely bad. No, I'm kidding. But like, you can lose it like, I love this thing. That's true.
Yeah.
I do love this thing. I love this thing. True. This is the best cheetah that I've ever seen. Not true.
Yeah. I wonder if there's something in there too about like teaching them kind of the idea that when you find something that you really like, that you feel like you're good at, it gets fun to work at it. And then getting really good at something is fun.
Yeah.
Because I think ultimately that's the part of us that does go out and chase things that we ought to be chasing, but it's not like running away from something. It's like running toward it,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That seems kind of tangentially related to praise, but it's like kind of what we're talking about is how do you praise them in a way that like creates that self-confidence, but also doesn't discourage them working hard.
You just need to check the box of like, do they feel that you love them?
Yeah.
And are interested in what they're doing.
But don't you feel like knowing you're loved and worthy of love makes you a little soft? Like, don't you feel like it takes the edge? Like, I don't know. What am I trying to say? It's fucked up. But it's like the Venus and Serena Williams didn't get parented like this.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get told that they were enough, even if they didn't hit the tennis ball that good.
Yeah.
And not that I have any desire for my kids. Like, it is so much more important to me for my kids to be happy than for my kids to be great. But I do think it's fun to really feel like you're good at something and can do it in a way that's significant.
Yeah. But I think also like, I just would never want our children to be pushed too hard. And I don't know how much the Williams sisters were pushed, but like
pretty hard.
So yeah, no, that's just not, no interest, no need. And you've said it to me. I feel like we're like taking different roles right now. Like when you said like, you'd rather have a kid who was marginally successful and like a farmer
Totally.
than whatever and like all twisted up. Like if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, if you're practicing at the tennis, whatever, for like hours on end, one, because your parents are like, you know, being mean to you, or two, because you're trying to like seek their approval, it's just the wrong reason for sport.
Yeah. And we're so far on the other end of that. I don't really worry that like that's a hole we're falling down.
True.
But I think that like there's this part of this whole conversation that gets into that idea of like gentle parenting and what does gentle parenting truly mean? Mm-hmm. We haven't even gotten into critique yet. Maybe I'm already trying to talk about it. But like it takes a little edge to get really good at stuff, or a little competitiveness to get really good at stuff. You know what I mean?
No, I think I know what you're saying. Like if they fail because of like lack of effort, you don't be mean about it, but you don't go over the moon. Great job, because they didn't do a great job.
Yeah.
Let's say that there's some sort of competition or a game or something, and they make an error and then basically mentally check out for the rest of the game and are moping around. My natural inclination would be to try to cheer them up, tell them how great they are. That's not the time to do that.
Yeah.
You don't like then go, great job, you did awesome out there. Like they literally did not do good.
Yeah, like, you really can't lie to them.
Don't lie to them, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just being real.
Well, all right. So maybe what you're saying is like you deliver the praise when they do a great job. You deliver the praise when you see them working hard. Life is going to teach them that it's more fun to be good at something than bad at it. And to be good at things, you kind of got to work at them.
Yeah.
That'll kind of take care of itself. You just need to make sure you're not giving them a false sense of having accomplished things that they haven't really accomplished.
Right.
Which gets into that whole like self-esteem versus self-worth.
Yeah.
Like self-esteem is something that's just like, here, have this.
Yeah.
And self-worth is something that's earned.
But like if someone really tries hard, I try to really make those outsized praise or compliments.
Yeah.
We've been asking our kids to clean up or help out for years. And then one day, one of the kids, like a few weeks ago, I was kind of overwhelmed, and someone asked for a napkin, and one of the kids just jumped up, I'll get it. Like, and just grabbed it. Like that's an action that was taken. That's like an effort thing. And I like kind of lost my mind in a positive way. I was just like,
yeah.
Dude, what did you just do? Let's just stop and talk about this. Is amazing.
Yeah.
You chose to get up and do this, make your life harder to help me. Dude, insane. When they do something crazy out of the ordinary that's good, that is also effort-based, we should be literally going nuts.
It's effort-based, but the other big thing it is, and this is something that we go hard on the praise on, it's also empathy-based.
Yeah.
He is like choosing to do something that is not that fun for him because he knows that it will make your life easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever like one of our kids, we probably praise the biggest on ethics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's nice of him to clean up for you.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Violet Archer and the Case of the Purple Martin. Here's a little excerpt from it. 3 sleeps. That's how long I was going to be here when my parents, Mama and Dados, went to a no kids allowed wedding, which, to be honest, felt like a little bit of a rude thing to have. Now, 3 whole days is nothing to sniff at, but at least I had Baba with me. If there's a better friend out there in the world, I haven't met them. He's as cute as all get out, great at cuddles, and a top-notch investigator too. But more on that in a minute. Let me just say this first. It's not that I was nervous about being away from my parents exactly, and Martha Mom and Papa Dan are great. But when you're a kid, a lot of stuff just kind of happens to you. Decisions get made by the tallies. That's what I call grown-ups. And the next thing you know, you're getting dropped into a situation you've never seen before. Your only choice is to roll with it. That was a little snippet from Violet Archer in the Case of the Purple Martin. Check the podcast description for a link to buy the book, or search Violet Archer on Amazon and buy it today.
Nice read, Maxie.
All right, so Matt, to officially dive into the critique side of the episode here, I got 2 little studies to round us. The Journal of Pediatric Healthcare did a study. It's just pretty interesting. Like, basically, they asked all these parents they self-reported how much they praised and how much they criticized their children. And then they were observed talking to their kids for a while and talking about their kids.
Dude, this seems like self-reporting would be a disaster, it seems like, for this.
But guess what? The praise correlated almost exactly with how they said that they praised their kids.
Okay.
How much they said they critiqued, inversely tracked. So if they said that they didn't critique their kids, they actually did it much higher. And if they said that I actually critique my kids quite a bit, it tracked lower.
Yo, that makes me feel great because I feel like that's one of my biggest flaws as a parent is being overly critical.
And the fact that you're saying it, the data would suggest that you're probably on the low end.
God, yeah.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. If you tell other people you're critical of your kids, you're actually not. So that's one. But then the other one, this one's a little sad.
Oh boy.
These researchers had parents of 7 to 11-year-olds talk about their child for 5 minutes. And they coded them for levels of criticism, how the parents talked to the researchers.
Interesting.
Then they measured the brain activity of the children as they looked at pictures of faces showing different emotions. And the children of the highly critical parents, very little attention to all of the emotional facial expressions.
Wait, explain that.
To go deeper into it, long story short, it's if their parents were highly critical.
During the 5 minutes of talking to the researcher?
Yeah, about their kids. Like, oh, my kid's this, my kid's that.
Okay.
Highly critical parents, the kids avoided looking at facial expressions, emotional facial expressions.
In general, in humans?
Of faces.
So if your parents are hard on you all the time, kids stop even looking at people's faces because they know when they look at your face, they see it. They can see it.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's because the researchers are proffering that maybe they're trying to avoid exposure to critical expressions. And by extension, the averse feelings that they feel whenever they look at their parents. And look, we've all done it, right? Just it's like, how often are you throwing your kid a glare, like some daggers?
Well, it's difficult because they do things all the time that, there's just a lot of like, you can't do that. There's a lot of critique to be delivered.
Well, if like most kids or almost any kid under 12 were like an adult, especially when they're happy and excited and a little slightly manic, they'd be the most annoying human adult in the world. So that's hard. This thing that you love so much can be like annoying or like
so loud, just so loud,
unacceptable or inappropriate behavior as an adult. But they're not adults. So that's what we know.
Yeah.
So how do we give kids feedback or critique?
Yeah.
I got something just to start right out, and then you tell me what you think on this. The worst things I do is when you do it kind of publicly or in front of people.
Yeah.
And same thing with anybody, with a coworker, with your partner. If there's something that's not going right, you don't do it when the level is stage 10, red hot, everyone's fired up. We're working with our, emotional brain. Giving feedback then, and like a kid trying to interpret something logical.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any, I do it all the time, by the way.
Yeah.
But when a kid's being kind of doing behavior that can't happen, we cannot be doing that. Here's why I did it. It's like,
yeah,
it's just not the time or the place.
Yeah. I had this happen at, we were at my wife's family's place and my kids' cousins were there. My wife's brother and two of his kids. And the cousins are like, dude, cousins are the fucking best, man. These cousins are so tight.
Yeah.
But my daughter was saying something kind of shitty to one of her cousins that was her age. She was just bragging about being better than him at something, basically. The way kids do.
Yeah.
But I was kind of just like, hey, and I kind of explained why. And she gave me real attitude. And then I kind of walked over there and I was like, I'm telling you something. I don't need that attitude back. And she was just like, you said it in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck. And she was so clear that that's what she was mad about. She even kind of knew the thing she had done was a little shitty. But in that moment, I felt like I didn't just want her to say a dick thing to her cousin and me just stand there.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt the need to be like, hey, but then I probably should have waited. Like, we need like a signal that doesn't embarrass her.
Yeah. And also there's a weird thing that I know you and I probably do it less than the average bear, but we still do it. If our kid does something to another kid at a playground or at an event, you almost like look at the other animals, the other apes, and just kind of let them know, like, I'll take care of it. Like,
yeah,
I saw it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I just hate when it's a grandstanding, like, we don't do that. Like, to like, basically it's for the other parents.
Yeah.
I think maybe the thing to do there, and I've probably never done this, is you just kind of walk over and it's like, hey, bud, do you want to go have a quick chat? And then if you feel embarrassed that the parents saw it, the parents see that you're taking them aside, but the kid feels no.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they do because you're like removing them from the situation.
But I mean, it's not like the thing has to be a perfect experience for the kid. They just did something that they shouldn't have done. You kind of know they shouldn't have done it. If their worst punishment is they got to walk off and talk to you for 30 seconds, like,
yeah,
we're not being, prison guards here. I think the biggest I'm not critical of the way that either of my daughters do things. I'm not critical of like their work or their writing or I lay off all that stuff so easy.
Mm-hmm.
But when they do something that I feel like is unethical or is unethical is like a big old word for a kid, but like
for an adult.
Yeah.
It's not something an adult would do.
Yeah. Or something unkind, you know?
Yeah.
I don't feel like I can ever just let that go. So I think that the key is figuring out how to do it right.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have to do it. Right?
Yeah. 100%.
I just can't ever just watch my kid do something shitty to another person and be like, that's fine.
No, 100%. So like in doing some research for this, I found a little construct that had some research behind it. I found it on Emily Oster's site. So it's called 1-2-3 Magic. Have you heard of this?
No.
Literally the most dog shit name.
I automatically don't trust it, but maybe it's great.
But it's the fact that it's survived with such a shitty name. Like it's got to have something.
Yeah, maybe there's something there.
So basically, it's like a gentle but firm sort of thing for getting a kid to stop doing unacceptable behavior. So basically, it's like a counting system. You say like 1, 2, 3, but it's all predetermined. You let them know what's up. You're not allowed to argue with them. Parents need to be like chill as fuck. It's everything you always say. Like you need to have your shit together. This is mostly about the parent being able to stay calm through this. Otherwise, none of this works. Also, consistency and shit that you've said. Like don't come up with like weird punishments or penalties. Like if they're hitting, it can't be like, we're going to turn this car around unless you're actually going to turn the car around, you know?
Yeah. And even then, that's like a weird message to send. Like, we're going to ruin the whole day. You know, it's just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said it.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, I don't think I've said that, but I've probably said equivalent things.
Oh, we will go home.
You know, one time we did just go home. Jesus. We were a long way away too. Anyways, go ahead.
No, I know. I never say it. I just fucking do it.
I just do it. I don't threaten it. I just every once in a while I will do it.
So one, you just get the kids to stop doing what they're doing. So like if they're hitting a kid, you just go stop that behavior, but you have to stay calm. It's the same shit we always say.
Oh, this is 1, 2, 3. That's 1.
Yeah. 2 is you also want to motivate your kids to start doing the right things you want them to do. The third one, I love bonding with your kids. So it's kind of like what you've said to me in like the anger or the consequences episode. It's like, it's really like reestablishing that connection. Like
it's so funny that system's called the 1, 2, 3 system. Number 3 is have a good relationship with your kid.
Yeah.
It's like,
but here's the thing. There was a study with 222 families that had like an intervention, learned about it, watched like something like a 30-minute or an hour-long video like once, and them compared to the control group, the kids were way better behaved and the stress at home went down. So it could just as simple as like, it's all about the parent just being calm.
Yeah.
And then what I try to do, because I rarely do this, is like the real money is talking about it a few hours later, the next day when things are good at the breakfast table.
God, isn't that right?
Hey, bud, remember yesterday when it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal, but I just wanted to kind of say how that might have felt for the other person. Let's just keep it in mind. Just keep it in mind.
Yeah.
That gets in.
That always goes so well, doesn't it? Yeah. I had a thing with my daughter like that recently where we were like having an argument about something and then we just took 30 minutes and we both came back calm. And I was like, here's what I was frustrated about. She's like, that makes sense. Here's what was hard. And neither of us were angry. God, so much of it is you kind of got to learn to lay off the high one. Like in the moment, it feels like I really want to swing at this bitch. But you're going to do way better. So like you stop the behavior, but then you fucking chill the fuck out and wait a while.
Right. And also like, let's say a kid does something totally egregious and like hits a kid in the head with a block. My natural thing is like scream at them. What are you doing?
Yeah.
No. Something that you've also said is like, what is the desired outcome here? What do I really want to do? Is it punitive? Do I want to punish them for what they've done? Or do I really want them to learn and not do that again in the future?
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, it's like, hey, bud, that can't be happening. We're going to need to chat in a minute whenever you settle down. I am settled down. All right, cool. What I normally would do is be like, no, you're not. No, you're not. That is not settled down. That is not settled down. And you just hit so-and-so with the block. That is not settled down.
I am totally settled down. You are not settled down. That's why I'm talking so loud.
So I do this right 20% of the time, but I feel like I've at least somewhat figured out what the right thing is because I've done it a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you gotta really have your shit together.
It's so hard to get better at this stuff, right? There's the knowing, and then there's the like being able to have your shit together when you're tired. But I think the thing that I could like get better at is just in the moment when it's happening, just try to just think about stopping it. And then think about like whatever teaching or discipline or whatever, like give that a minute or two so that can happen calmly.
Well, here, think about it this way. Like, you know, when your kid did something kind of not okay, they're probably feeling guilty about it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're kind of mad. They're feeling sheepish. You can tell that they're feeling like they're going to start crying. You can tell that they're going to almost cry, but they're the aggressor. And then you're mad.
And you say, "What, are you going to cry?" Sorry.
Oh my God, no. But what I would, thank God I would never say that. But I will goad the child into crying by telling them how what they did was so fucked up.
You'd be like, I'm going to say this and I know it's going to make you cry, but here it comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that.
Deep down, I kind of know that I'm going to make them cry.
Yeah.
Because they, quote, deserve it. Because they fucking shouldn't hit that person with the block. And how dare you?
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, is that my goal to like, now I'm lucid, I'm chill. Of course not. I can see the human there. And I love that human.
Yeah.
It's weird when you are in that zone where you're really mad and they're really mad and no one's acquiescing. It's like weird. Like we're the ones who are the old ones that should be like, somebody's got to pull the energy out. It's got to be us.
They've actually been able to study brains and the way they fire during angry interactions. And I don't know exactly how they're measuring it. It may just be like suppressed mirror neuron activity, but basically when you're pissed off, your empathy just goes through the floor. It's crazy how you can look at your sad kid who's on the edge of tears and then say something really critical of them right in that moment. But I don't know. There's this other part of me that's maybe older school that's like, if they knock the shit out of their brother or sister or whoever, and then they're feeling terrible, it's like, you should feel pretty bad about that one. You know what I mean? I don't know, but probably they don't need you to say that because they're already doing it themselves.
We're talking about ideals here. If a block gets egregiously whacked on somebody's head, I'm going to scream my head off at the aggressor. Go to your room right now. And I will lose it.
Yeah.
And I think that if you do that, I might not feel bad about it as long as I didn't say anything past that. You know, the heat of the moment happened. That was a true, raw human emotion. It came out. I screamed at him. As long as I didn't put some stank on it. Like, who does that? What kind of sociopath? You know, like, you don't do that.
I can't believe I raised a son who would do that. Oh, man. Yeah.
So, but I think that's like a fine passing grade. It's just not ideal because you don't want to teach your kids like the way you respond to something is screaming.
Yeah. But if I had two friends and one of them suddenly for no good reason punched the other, I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? It is the human response, right?
Right. But it's a kid.
I know it's a kid. And so of course it's different, but like, well, one, the perfect way to do it is just impossible. If you're a living, breathing person, you just cannot do it that way as much of the time as you wish you could. And just also like, I sometimes feel this tension between, okay, so here's the ideal way to do it with total equanimity and calm, like a fucking robot. And like, but aren't they supposed to learn how the world works a little bit from their interactions with me?
Yeah. But you know what, instead of freaking out, like maybe the move is like, unacceptable, go to your room. I got to deal with your siblings, see if they're okay. Go to your room. We'll chat in a minute. Yeah. It's just removing from the situation. They're going to feel bad about that, as opposed to like, I literally will puff out my chest and yell at them like, here's an example. I don't even know what it was, but it was something I think the older son hurt the younger son or something with like a toy snake that had 2 eyeballs on it, plastic eyeballs. The snake was a stuffed animal. And I took the snake and slammed it on the ground because I was so mad while I was screaming and shattered one of the eyeballs off. We still have the snake, and I thought that everyone had forgotten about that. It was 4 years ago, and they like are looking at the snake and like, remember when Daddy slammed the snake and the eyeball popped off? I'm like, what? God. It was one of those ones where it was like relatively justified because a block to somebody's head, and it was like egregious violence. But now they have not forgotten that. They don't even remember who hit who. But they remember the fucking eyeball. His fucking eyeball popped off. It was brutal. He throws it on the ground. The fucking eyeball rolls across the floor. Yeah. Oh, it's not good. It's fine. Who hasn't?
I think what fucks with my head is like, it feels like so much what we're learning about parenting is that anger is not particularly helpful in a lot of situations, right?
Yeah.
So like, why are we wired as mammals to get so fucking angry so fast at our kids? Everybody I talk to is like, I didn't think I had a temper, and then I had children.
We don't have the village, meaning like we don't see it happening. Like, how many kids have you seen reared? Like, if we were in a village of 40 people and everyone, was breastfeeding each other's babies and stuff, like our whole lives would have been seeing kids being raised. I think sometimes without the village, we feel that like our kids are like really hard, like, because we don't see everybody else's hard thing. In fact, we see everybody else's highlight reel. So it's like, oh, why are my kids being so this way? As opposed to like, all this shit is normal. All this shit is, and that can maybe help us not fucking lose our minds right out of the gate.
I think you're onto something with the village, but I think for me, it is the village, but for a different reason. I don't know, man. I think my kids are awesome.
Yeah.
I think my kids are great. I don't think that I got a uniquely shitty lot with kids in any way. Probably I got it easier than a lot of people. But if you were in the village and you were all breastfeeding each other's kids and all the kids were running around every day and people were just there and your parents were there. And I think that like maybe what has created this environment where so many parents feel like they're struggling with being overly critical and angry about it so much of the time is how isolated we are in doing it. I just think the environment of doing it with other people all the time probably feels so much better than this.
Also, with the village, you would not be getting super mad at your kids in front of other people.
It always kind of goes better when everybody's around.
Yeah.
I don't know, when there's like your aunties around and your uncles, there's other people also who are like, hey, it's just kind of all more shared. And it's so concentrated with a nuclear family in a single family home, which is how all of us live.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to move into a commune. With the right people, I would join a fucking cult. With the right, like 16 people, I'd so join a cult.
Yeah.
We wouldn't get weird. We just live on a big piece of land.
I mean, you just got to be able to vote people out off the island, and then
It does get complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, just to try to bring it back to critique.
How many episodes have we started off being about other things, and by the end we're talking about
anger?
It's just my anger, man. Yeah. Fucking hell. God damn it.
But it is what it is. It's like everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
I think the plan with critique is really like this again. Sorry to pile on like more shit that takes more time. Diffuse the bomb and don't try to solve this shit until everyone's calm. And then you got to dredge it back up if it's like egregious.
Yeah.
Everyone is more logical when all the energy's been taken out of the thing.
Yeah.
And that's when critique can be great.
Yeah.
Unless you're a fucking asshole and you're overly critical and you're doing that thing, kid can't see faces.
Kid can't even fucking see faces. God.
Yeah.
Isn't it, when you hear a study like that, don't you just like shudder a little bit at how much power we have in our children's lives? It's just the weight of that fucking responsibility. Jesus. Oh, one other thing.
Yeah.
I'm already seeing how different the delivering of critique and maybe praise is going to be between my two kids. My oldest, you just say a little thing and she takes it so much to heart. Mm-hmm. I always got to err on the side with her of just like being gentle with that shit.
Yeah.
I think my youngest is like a little different. She's just got a little thicker skin about it or something, or seems to, at least so far. Mm-hmm. I say that just to say this is probably a little different with every kid. Like, how much do they have to hear about it to register it? How much are they already taking on themselves, beating themselves up about what they've done? That's the other thing that makes all this hard, is I don't think there's like a hard and fast rule that works for every human child.
Yeah, true. But I'd also say if somebody does something egregious and I yell no at them, any kid is going to start crying. Like any kid under 10.
Yeah.
If their favorite person in the world is not done it and then they do something wrong that they feel shitty about and you come at it with a high intensity, like the words mean nothing in those moments. It's just about like screaming.
It's just your energy. Yeah.
So like if you couldn't say words, because no one understands words when they're under 10 and they're fucking pissed off. So it's like, if I was just like, ah!
Yeah,
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just like bark at them like a lion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why, when they don't understand words, sometimes you got to really show them what you mean. And sometimes the best way to do that is to rip an eyeball off a snake. I'm sorry. I don't mean to bust your balls about that.
No, it's great. It's great because I really feel like I have this figured out, but then like my past keeps like coming up and it's like, yeah, what about that snake, Daddy? What about old Snaky One Eye?
What do you buy? Violet Archer.